court, having had count 9, tried to and pursuant to waiver, finds the defendant, Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty of aggravated vehicular homicide.
Teen murderers make up a significant portion of the convicted population. From courtroom breakdowns to chilling interrogation footage, we explore how these teens, some manipulated, others acting with cold premeditation, committed brutal murders. Let's witness their raw reactions as they confront the life-altering consequences of their crimes.
Stephen Culver and Tyler Witt, the two described as murderers motivated by a forbidden love of one another, sat at the same table during today's hearing.
On June 13, 2009, a welfare check was made to the home of Joanne Witt because she had not been to work for 2 days. The sight that the police officers met was horrific, to say the least. Joanne was the mother of Tyler Witt, and she tried to give her the best life possible. However, this wasn't enough for Tyler, and she became physically harmful towards her mother. The reason Joanne could not do anything back was because she had lost custody of Tyler once before for disciplining her and was scared about something like that happening again. Tyler acted out frequently and would often run away from home and smoke, even though she wasn't allowed to. When Tyler was 14 years old, she met 19-year-old Stephen Paul Culver and started dating him even though she was a minor. This was illegal and Culver knew this, but this didn't stop him from being in a relationship with her. Culver was also obsessed with knives, a detail that is very crucial to this case. When they started dating, Tyler started telling Culver lies about her mother. She told him that her mother was an alcoholic and a harmful mother. Because of this, Culver became protective. They also lied to Joanne, saying Culver was gay because of their age difference. However, this lie didn't last for long. In June 2009, Joanne discovered Tyler's diary and found out that Tyler had been engaged in intimate relations with Stephen. She reported Culver to the authorities and he was charged with statutory. However, Tyler and Culver denied anything of this sort and Culver was released. This was the last time when the police saw Joanne alive. On June 12, 2009, Joanne was asleep in her bedroom when Tyler disabled the house alarm system and invited Culver in. With one of his knives, Culver stabbed Joanne to death, and the two of them escaped to San Francisco. They were arrested a few days later and charged with the murder of Joanne Witt. They were charged to court, and it was there that Tyler learned that she would be tried as an adult. During one of the court sessions, Tyler took the stand and testified that she conspired to kill her mother with Culver. She showed no emotions and no remorse for her actions. However, she said that she had a demon inside of her, but she said she knew what she was doing. Tyler was sentenced to 15 years in prison and Culver was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tyler was released in 2022 on good behavior, where Tyler conspired to kill her mother so she could be with her boyfriend. But how does it compare to intentionally killing people in a car crash, like in the case of Mackenzie Shirilla?
The court, having had count 9, tried to and pursuant to waiver, finds the defendant, Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty of aggravated vehicular homicide.
Early on July 31, 2022, surveillance cameras captured a Toyota Camry driving around Strongsville. 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla was driving the car. Her 20-year-old boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and their friend, 19-year-old Davian Flanagan, were also in the car. The car seemed to be going at the recommended speed limit until peace dissolved into chaos in under a few seconds. Mackenzie suddenly accelerated at over 100 miles per hour. The car veered off the road and smashed hard into the side of a building. The crash claimed the lives of Dominic and Davian instantly. Mackenzie, on the other hand, survived with injuries to her arms and legs. When police officers arrived, the scene they found was horrific.
Radio, there's an occupant inside.
The police officers pronounced the two guys dead and an investigation was opened. Even though it looked like an accident at first, the investigation soon revealed that Mackenzie intentionally accelerated and crashed into the building. Prosecutors started demanding a murder conviction because evidence showed that the gas pedal on the car was pushed to 100 miles per hour, with 100% pressure exerted on the wheel. There was no attempt to push the brakes. It was revealed that she left her foot on the pedal the whole time, and soon enough, Mackenzie Shirilla was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. A trauma surgeon who worked on Shirilla reported that she took responsibility for what happened to her boyfriend and his friend. The defense also admitted that the crash was her fault. However, she didn't do it on purpose, and it was truly an accident. Mackenzie's lawyer desperately tried to show that Mackenzie was innocent and didn't intentionally crash the car. Because of the nature of the trial, it was up to Judge Nancy Margaret Russo to determine what was going to happen to Mackenzie. And for Judge Russo, Mackenzie Shrilla's actions were intentional and she knew what she was doing.
The video clearly shows the purpose and intent of the defendant. She chose a course of death and destruction that day. Exhibit 802 crystallizes the deadly decision-making of the defendant.
Judge Russo said that Shrilla wanted to kill both boys and probably herself in the crash too. She called her a literal hell on wheels. Despite this, Mackenzie's mother, Natalie Shrilla, desperately begged the court, trying to prove that her daughter wasn't a murderer. She addressed the family of the victims and told the judge that Mackenzie had no memory of the accident.
Your Honor, this was a terrible, tragic, nightmare accident to have happened that she has no memory of, and she will never emotionally or physically recover of it. She almost died too, and we're asking that you please not run the sentence as consecutive. He was family, and we all loved each other.
Ultimately, the decision came down to Judge Russo, and she presented the state's verdict. Mackenzie was found guilty of first-degree murder, and it was time to hear the victim impact statements. The sister of Davine Flanagan asked the judge to give Mackenzie the longest sentence possible.
I would like you to give Mackenzie the longest possible sentence.
Dominic Russo's brother also took the stand and let the court know that Mackenzie was the most selfish person he knew.
Mackenzie's statement in the hospital to Detective Azu, "Can't you just take my license away for 10 years or something?" That statement is Mackenzie Shrilla. The most selfish person I know. Ironically, Dom was the most selfless person I know.
Mackenzie also addressed the court and the families of her victims, apologizing to them while in tears.
I wish I could remember what happened. I'm just so sorry. I'm heartbroken. I love Dom and Davian. We were all friends and Dom was my soulmate. I wish I could take all your pain away, and I'm so sorry.
Mackenzie was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for the murder of Dominic Russo and Davine Flanagan. We now turn to the dark path of Jennifer Mee, a former internet sensation whose fleeting fame took a sharp and deadly turn into crime and lifelong consequences.
Then Jennifer and her parents embarked on a whirlwind media tour, appearing on local and national news shows, hoping someone would be able to offer a solution. None have worked so far. That sound has been her constant companion since the first hick.
4 weeks ago tomorrow.
And the sound is the least of it.
I get really bad chest pain, abdominal pains, throat pains, back pains.
Jennifer Mee, also known as the Hiccup Girl, first gained attention in 2007 at 15. Her unique condition, a long-lasting cause of hiccups, made her an instant sensation. She appeared on several TV shows and became a household name, captivating audiences with her quirky personality and infectious laughter.
Lots of water.
Other suggestions have been impractical or illegal.
Somebody told me to smoke marijuana, take a hit of marijuana, that would help. Yeah.
But you're not going to go that route.
Oh, definitely not.
As Jennifer's fame faded, her life began to unravel. She met her boyfriend, Lamont Williams, and together they embarked on a dangerous path that led to murder and a lifelong sentence.
After her boyfriend, LaRon Rayford, caught the two in the act, but that didn't come out in court today.
Were you faithful to LaRon? Yes.
Jennifer and Lamont began searching for victims online, targeting vulnerable or unsuspecting individuals. They would befriend these individuals, gaining their trust, and then lure them to vacant homes under the pretense of a meeting or business opportunity. Once inside, Jennifer and Lamont would rob their victims at gunpoint.
Jennifer Mee appeared on closed-circuit TV for less than 30 seconds.
By probable cause, your bond is currently zero. Can you afford a lawyer to help you?
However, on October 8, 2010, their plans went tragically awry. Jennifer, Lamont, and their accomplice, LaRon Rayford, lured 22-year-old Shannon Griffin to a vacant house in Tampa, Florida. Once inside, the three teenagers robbed Shannon, and he was fatally shot 4 times with a .38 caliber handgun. Through meticulous detective work, police were able to uncover incriminating evidence, leading to the arrest of Jennifer, Lamont, and LaRon. All 3 confessed to their involvement in the crime and were charged with murder.
I heard 2.
Did you see the actual shooting happen or no?
No, sir.
What happened after the gunshots? Tell me what happened.
I didn't stay long, I left.
During Jennifer's trial, the prosecution played a recording from a jailhouse phone call between Jennifer and her mother, where Jennifer admitted she did not physically kill anyone, but said she set up the situation. However, experts testified that Jennifer's DNA was discovered on the victim's shirt. Her attorneys sought to portray her as suffering from schizophrenia, arguing that her mental condition rendered her unable to stand trial. After a court-ordered evaluation, it was determined that Jennifer was competent to stand trial.
You can see that Mee broke down right as that verdict was read. She was obviously hoping that the jury would convict her on a lesser charge, perhaps accessory to murder or manslaughter. Now, though, she'll spend the rest of her life behind bars.
In 2013, 3 years after Shannon was killed, Jennifer was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Her accomplices were also convicted and received life sentences. The public was in disbelief that the internet sensation Hiccup Girl had been convicted of such a heinous crime. Many criticized the sentence, arguing that it differed from what would be imposed on a male offender facing similar circumstances.
I couldn't even tell you. I got cased up with the wrong crowd of people, really. Unfortunately, when I started experimenting with drugs, I just felt like I was invincible to everything.
Jennifer sought a new trial following the conviction, but her appeal was denied. The ruling solidified Jennifer's fate, leaving her to serve a life sentence in a correctional facility. This case serves as a reminder that even individuals who achieve fame and success through online platforms can face serious consequences for their actions. Brace yourself for the chilling story of Jordan Wade, a teen who shockingly took 4 lives in a brutal act of violence.
The crime last summer seemed almost unthinkable. 4 victims forced to the basement of a home on Hudson Street near Cleveland Avenue.
Wade's trial began in May of this year. It was May 20th that a jury found him guilty on all charges. Today, Wade was given 172 and a half years in prison.
In 2015, Jordan Wade and Robert Lee Adams committed a horrific crime that resulted in the tragic deaths of 4 people. This heinous crime took place in South Linden, Columbus, Ohio, and left the community in shock. At just 16 years old, Jordan Wade and 27-year-old Robert Lee Adams carried out a robbery and execution-style murders that left the victims dead from multiple gunshot wounds,
where they were ordered to lie on the floor before being shot in the head. The victims were Michael Ballore, Angela Harrison, Daniel Sharp, and Taisha Nelson.
Among the victims were 41-year-old Michael Ballore, 26-year-old Daniel Craig Sharp, 35-year-old Angela Harrison, and 18-year-old Taisha Nelson. These individuals were senselessly gunned down by Jordan and Robert, leaving behind grieving families and friends. A 15-year-old girl who miraculously escaped with her life after being grazed in the head by a bullet was also present during the shooting.
Police say Wade and Robert Lee Adams were at the home of Michael Baller. They say Adams shot Baller and 4 other people in the basement.
Terrified that Jordan and Robert might finish her off, the teenage girl took drastic measures to save her own life. She pretended to be dead, lying motionless among the bodies. After the duo fled the scene, the teenager managed to stumble out of the basement where she had been shot, seeking assistance. Miraculously, the teenager survived and eventually recovered from the incident. Once in stable condition, she provided crucial information to the police, helping them locate Jordan and Robert, which led to their arrests.
The gunman, 28-year-old Robert Lee Adams, he's set to go to trial in January. He faces the death penalty if convicted.
During their trial, the prosecution alleged that Jordan and Robert had robbed the victims, ordered them down to the basement, and that Robert was the one who fired the weapon that killed them. Jordan's defense attorneys argued that he wasn't the one who fired the gun and suggested he only took part in the crime because he was trying to impress the older Robert Adams. However, the prosecution claimed that Jordan was an active gang member at the time of the quadruple homicide, with a long criminal history, even though he was a juvenile. Jordan had been found guilty of committing aggravated arson at only 12 years old. The prosecutor alleged that Jordan had never taken responsibility for the murders and had the audacity to claim it was a cover-up.
Wade's trial began in May of this year. It was May 20th that a jury found him guilty on all charges.
When the judge handed down the life sentences, Jordan reacted with shock and disbelief. He appeared stunned, unable to comprehend the magnitude of his actions and the life-altering consequences he faced. His defense attorneys argued that Jordan was young and impulsive and deserved a chance at rehabilitation. Still, the prosecution maintained that the gravity of the crimes warranted the harshest punishment possible.
Wade was not the gunman, but prosecutors say he helped Robert Lee Adams rob and trap the victims in the basement. Wade was a juvenile at the time.
In a letter read to the court, the surviving teenager shed light on Jordan's devastation and expressed her hatred for him. The letter painted a chilling picture of Jordan as a manipulative and ruthless individual. The teenager described how Jordan's actions had shattered her mind, heart, and soul, leaving her with a profound sense of loss and despair.
Her testimony will be key to the prosecution's case. Wade was 16 years old at the time of the crime and is the first of 2 suspects to stand trial.
At the end of the letter, the teenager conveyed a sense of satisfaction, stating that it felt good to know Jordan would spend the rest of his life behind bars, forced to reflect on the lives he destroyed. Next is the case of Thane Ormsby, which tells the tale of a teenage triple murderer who tried to escape the consequences of his actions by claiming he was insane.
3 people are dead, including a 10-year-old boy, and state police are calling their deaths a homicide. Investigators say a relative found the bodies last night in a mobile home.
Whether you ask people in the tiny Aroostook County town of Amity or state police around here, the answer is the same. They don't think there's ever been a triple homicide in this area.
On June 22, 2010, Thane Ormsby, a teenage student from Ellsworth High School, carried out a gruesome attack in Amity, Maine. At around 5:30 p.m., he entered the home of 55-year-old Jeffrey Ryan and began a rampage that resulted in the senseless murder of Jeffrey, his 10-year-old son Jesse, and a family friend, Jason Dehan, who was 30 years old.
Jason and Jesse ran to the back room. So I chased Jesse, and he was the quickest.
Following the stabbing, Thane fled the scene, triggering a search that lasted several months. In July 2010, he was arrested on a fugitive from justice charge in Dover, New Hampshire. After months of searching, the police finally tracked him down and brought him to justice. Thane was extradited from New Hampshire to Maine, where he was placed at the Aroostook County Jail. According to Thane, he killed Jeffrey Ryan because he was convinced that the man was selling drugs. He also revealed that he killed Jason Dehan and Jeffrey's young son because they were witnesses to the crime.
Wearing a pinstripe suit, Ormsby had to wipe the tears from his eyes as his mother described the long way she says he has come after a childhood of abuse and neglect.
Thane was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of arson. He pleaded not guilty at his arraignment. However, several months later, he entered a second plea, not guilty by reason of insanity.
His 10-year-old son Jesse and Jason Dehan, Ormsby did not shed a single tear.
For the murder of Jeffrey Ryan, it is my sad but solemn duty.
In 2012, Thane, now 21, found himself on trial at the Holton Superior Court. The charges were serious, 3 counts of murder and 1 count of arson. However, Thane's defense team argued that he was insane at the time of the triple homicide. Jurors ultimately rejected this defense and sentenced him to 3 life sentences and a sentence of 15 years for the arson conviction. News that a teenager had committed such a heinous crime was met with widespread outrage and disbelief. Many people found it incomprehensible that someone so young could possess such extreme violence and disregard for human life.
To sentence you to life in prison. For the murder of Jesse Ryan, it is my sad but solemn duty to sentence you to life in prison.
Thane filed an appeal with the Maine Supreme Court 1 year after his sentencing. One of his primary claims was that the police violated his Fifth Amendment rights when they interviewed him in July 2010 following the murders. However, in a unanimous ruling, the Supreme Court dismissed his appeal, stating that no mistakes were made in allowing Thane's statements to be used during his trial and sentencing hearing. The next case is the controversial case of Sean Sellers, a teenager who was executed despite committing murder at a young age.
I walked into their bedroom wearing just a pair of black underwear after doing a ritual that night, and I shot them both in the head as they slept.
In March 1986, a heinous crime shook the Oklahoma City community when 2 people were killed in their own homes. The victims, Vonda Bellafato and her stepfather Lee Bellafato, were gunned down in their sleep by one of their family members, their 16-year-old son, Sean Sellers. To try and limit the amount of blood that would splatter onto his body, Sean brazenly shot Lee first, dressed in nothing but his underwear. The sound of the first shot woke up Vonda, who then found herself face to face with her killer. Sean pulled the trigger, ending her life with a single shot to her face. After committing these heinous crimes, Sean attempted to stage the crime scene to make it appear that an intruder broke into the house and killed his parents. However, the detectives were smarter than Sean and quickly debunked his elaborate ruse. He was arrested for the murder of his mother, Vonda, and stepfather Lee.
So we began to prove our allegiance to Satan by breaking God's commandments. And in the end, there was only one that remained unbroken.
Sean confessed to the police that he had also murdered Robert Paul Bauer, a 32-year-old cashier from Circle K who refused to sell him beer in 1985. This shocking revelation added another chilling chapter to Sean's already disturbing story. During Sean's trial, he claimed that he suffered from demonic possession and that forces beyond his control drove his actions.
You shall not murder. So, in the Satanic Bible, the copy I had, I think they have edited that out of it since then, but the copy that I had...
Sean Sellers argued that he had read Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible several times between the ages of 15 and 16, and it was during this time that he committed the murders of Robert Bowers and his parents. His attorney also painted a different picture, alleging that the fantasy game Dungeons & Dragons motivated his client to commit the 3 murders. The defense argued that the game had warped Sean's mind and introduced him to dark, violent themes that influenced his actions.
Lonely jail cell on death row, Sean began to see and experience the love and forgiveness of God. He started to cry.
The jury found Sean guilty of all 3 murders and sentenced him to death in 1986. People expressed outrage and disbelief that a teenager could be given a sentence of death. Sean's age, being just a teen at the time of the crimes, raised questions about the legal system's ability to distinguish right from wrong when sentencing a minor. Many argued that Sean's young age should weigh heavily in his favor, as he was still developing mentally and had not yet reached full maturity. Despite his efforts to secure an appeal, Sean's fate was ultimately sealed. He was executed by lethal injection on February 4th, 1999. In his final moments, Sean requested a simple meal, egg rolls and shrimp. Now we turn to another disturbing case, this time involving Rachel Shove, whose motive was far more personal and chilling.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology, because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done.
This is Rachel Shove, and she's charged with the murder of Skylar Neese when she was only 16 years old. On July 6, 2012, 16-year-old Skylar Neese disappeared from her home in Star City, West Virginia, and was not found until January 16, 2013. Unfortunately, only Neese's body was found with the help of one of the murderers, Rachel Shove. The other person who was charged with the murder of Neese was Sheila Eddy. Shove and Eddy were friends with Neese until their friendship turned sour. According to Shove's confessions, the motive for murdering Neese was that they didn't like her and didn't want to be friends with her anymore. The surveillance of the apartment where Neese lived showed that Neese left her home at 12:30 a.m. through her window and entered into a sedan with Shove and Eddy. That was the last time anyone besides Shove and Eddy saw Neese alive. Because of this, Neese was first treated as a runaway until the police discovered that the sedan on the surveillance belonged to Eddy.
Rachel and Sheila drove around Star City and in the area, preparing themselves. They had concealed knives on their bodies that had been wrapped in towels by Sheila Eddy, and they took that shovel with them, and they arrived at Skylar's home and told her they were waiting for her. They were waiting to kill her.
When Shove and Eddy were questioned, they said they had hung out with Neese but dropped her off at home an hour after they left. At this point, Neese hadn't been found. However, on January 3, 2013, Rachel Shove suddenly admitted that she and Eddy had plotted to kill Neese. She also led them to where they left Neese. Skylar Neese had been stabbed to death almost 30 miles away from her home, before Shove and Eddy dumped her body and covered it up with branches. It was not until years later that Shove finally gave the real motive behind the murder. According to her, she and Eddy had been in a romantic relationship and Neese caused tension between the couple, leading them to get rid of her.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology, because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done.
Shove pled guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for cooperating with the authorities to find her victim. In court, she apologized for her actions and showed remorse for what she did. She was teary as she apologized to Neese's family and her parents. Eventually, it was time for sentencing.
It is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for a period of 30 years.
Rachel Shove was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. On May 9, 2023, Shove became eligible for parole and bid for it. She was denied parole and remains in custody. Shove and Eddy murdered Neese because of romantic tension. But how does it compare to murdering one's grandparents for no apparent reason, as Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Bjork did?
All right, Ms. Bjork, you are charged with 2 felony warrants for murder, 2 felony warrants for aggravated assault.
On April 8, 2017, Gwinnett County, Georgia experienced the shocking and brutal double murders of 63-year-old Randall and Wendy Bjork. The two were grandparents to 17-year-old Cassandra Bjork. They had gotten legal custody because she had issues with her parents. Despite the grandparents' best efforts to give Cassandra a good life, she became more troubled and would run away from home from time to time. She also brought home drugs and assaulted her grandmother on multiple occasions. She also had a boyfriend, 19-year-old Johnny Ryder, who she ran away with many times. The couple were described as volatile and toxic. Eventually, they committed worse crimes. On April 8th, the police responded to an assault case in a home in Lawrenceville, and the victims identified the attackers as Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Bjork. The two of them had attacked Johnny's sister and her boyfriend with a baseball bat and pepper spray before escaping. The car they used to escape belonged to Wendy and Randall, and this led the police to force their way into the home, as they expected the worst. To their horror, they found the bodies of Wendy and Randall. The two of them had been stabbed multiple times. Their autopsies showed that they had suffered blunt force to the head and various cuts around their throats. Everyone was horrified that something like that had happened in their community. Cassie and Johnny became the main suspects in the case, and a day after the Bjorks were found, Their granddaughter and her boyfriend were found after they barricaded themselves inside an apartment. They refused to come out, and by the time the SWAT team was able to get a visual, they found out that the teens were injured in the bathroom as they had tried to commit suicide. They failed this attempt and were taken to the hospital. The two of them were charged with the murders of Cassie's grandparents. The interrogation revealed some shocking details that showed that the murder had been premeditated.
It seems that you're sorry you got caught, that you had people over after. You don't seem to be sorry that you killed your grandparents.
Cassie told the police that they had planned to murder her grandparents and keep their bodies from being discovered. According to Cassandra, she and Johnny waited until her grandparents were asleep before entering their bedroom, duct taping and attacking them. The murder weapons included a tire iron, a baseball bat, a hammer, and butcher knives. The two of them beat and stabbed the Bjorgs to death. What's even more horrific is that after the murders, Cassandra sealed the windows and doors with caulk to keep the smell of the decomposing bodies from coming out.
And then we came back to the house.
When you guys left, where'd you guys go to?
We went over to like Kroger or Publix to go get something to eat, and then we went back to the house and we just kind of like chilled there.
Which one?
It was like on Old Peachtree.
Johnny and Cassie then ordered takeout and invited their friends to the house for a party. She also said that they smoked a lot of weed to mask the smell of the bodies as they were in the house for more than a week.
Things like just seemed different. They didn't look at me the same anymore. Like they didn't, I don't know. It's like the vibe that they have was like they didn't really know what to do. They didn't really know like how to be around me. I guess they didn't really know how to talk to me.
The motive for the murder was shocking. Cassie said she killed her grandparents because they were too strict. She also said that her grandparents weren't the only intended victims. According to her, she and Johnny had planned to kill Johnny's family and Cassandra's mother. They both took a plea deal and didn't go to trial. Both of them were sentenced to 2 life sentences, each with the possibility of parole after 60 years. When the two heard their sentences, their reactions were different from each other. While Johnny apologized for what he did, Cassie was said to have been crying and refused to say anything even when she was given the chance to speak. The two would be eligible for parole in 2077. This case bears some semblance to the next one, but what do we say of an adult helping a minor to kill her father, like Ellen Fryer?
I've seen all different kinds of people, and now see humanity from a new, compassionate perspective.
This is Ellen Fryer, and she is being charged with a felony of conspiring to murder her father with the help of her 19-year-old boyfriend in 2017. On October 2, 2017, 50-year-old Aaron Fryer and 15-year-old Ellen Fryer were reported missing by Aaron's girlfriend after Aaron's younger daughters had found blood in their home. Aaron's 11-year-old daughter said she heard her father yelling in the morning but didn't come down until later. Then she recalled hearing the voice of Gavin McFarlane, Ellen's 19-year-old boyfriend. Aaron's body was found a week later in the woods. Based on the statements that Ellen's siblings had given, Ellen and her boyfriend were brought in for questioning, and the details that were revealed will shock you. According to Ellen, her father had told her that she could not be with Gavin because she was a minor and Gavin should know better. Before the unfortunate murder, Aaron had forbidden Gavin from seeing his daughter again, and even threatened to kill him if he saw him near his daughter again. Ellen allegedly told the police that her father had been abusive and that she wanted to run away together with Gavin. According to her, Gavin had shown up with 22-year-old Russell Jones with a machete in hand. She told the police that 22-year-old Jones had attacked her father, and she ran away when she heard yelling. However, the story that Jones told the police was different. He told them that it was Gavin who had killed Aaron with a baseball bat. He said that he had walked into the house to see Aaron's body on the floor. Jones said that the only role that he played in the murder was helping Gavin to get rid of the body. He also said that Ellen had been the mastermind behind it all. Gavin McFarlane admitted to killing Aaron Fryer, but there was a sickening twist.
I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to kill him. She wanted him dead, but I didn't want to kill him. And I was like, I'm not going to kill him. She was all like, no, I don't want him around him.
Ellen had told Gavin that her father had abused her and that she was 2 weeks pregnant as a result. Except Ellen wasn't pregnant and Aaron Fryer hadn't been abusive. He was just trying to protect his daughter from Gavin, who was eventually found guilty of third-degree rape because he had sexual relations with Fryer as a minor. Gavin then revealed that Ellen had told him to kill her father. He said she told him this: "Go out in the front room, take him out and text me, and let me know when it's done." After this was revealed, Ellen pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Gavin McFarland was found guilty of homicide and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. At her sentencing hearing, Ellen apologized for her actions and said that she was spending every day asking for forgiveness because she found God during the period that she was awaiting sentencing. She will be eligible for parole in 2041. Where Ellen used the help of another person to murder her father, the same cannot be said for Gavin Smith, who murdered his entire family by himself.
There's days that I do anything to take it back.
On December 13, 2020, the bodies of 4 people were found in Elkview, West Virginia. 39-year-old Risa Saunders Long, 37-year-old Daniel Long, 12-year-old Gage Ripley, and 3-year-old Jameson Long. The 4 members of the family were fatally shot. The perpetrator? 16-year-old Gavin Smith. The people who were murdered were Gavin's mother, his stepfather, and his 2 younger brothers. All 5 of them had been in the house because of COVID-19 curfews and restrictions. According to Gavin, the pressure in the house was overbearing because his parents were strict and had too many rules on everything ranging from food to screen time. Gavin decided to murder his parents after they forbade him from seeing his 17-year-old girlfriend, Rebecca Walker. Gavin Smith waited until his family was asleep before he shot his parents and 12-year-old brother in the head. Before he did this, he was on a video call with Rebecca. At first, it seemed like Gavin had hung up to commit the murders, but evidence later showed that the video call was still ongoing when he murdered his family. After he shot them, he continued to talk to Rebecca until he heard his 3-year-old brother crying from under his crib where he was hiding. He then went to look for him before shooting him in the head as well. After he committed the murder, he went to Rebecca's house, and she hid him for 4 days until the police found him. Gavin was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and use of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
You do grant this alternate sentence Mr. Sullivan's talking about, you won't have an issue on me because I never was involved with it all until December of 2020.
After he was charged to court, Gavin apologized for his actions and said that he would take it back if he could. He also asked for leniency. Despite this, the judge believed that he showed no remorse for his actions because what he did was evil. Judge Kenneth Ballard also said that the only reason he was sentencing Gavin with mercy was because Smith had committed the murders as a minor.
Executed your mother and stepfather by shooting them in the head while they were asleep. Then you executed your 2 brothers by shooting them in the head, the youngest of which was hiding under his crib. Your actions can only be described as an act of pure evil. Evil.
Eventually, Smith was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the first-degree murder of his mother, stepfather, and 3-year-old brother, 40 years for the murder of his 12-year-old brother, and 10 years for the use of a firearm. Gavin will be eligible for parole after 15 years, but he may never be granted. As shocking as Gavin's case is, it pales in comparison to the unsettling and calculated nature of Carly Madison's story, where teenage rebellion turned into cold-blooded murder.
She was having a mental health crisis.
She doesn't know what was going on at that time. We're asking you to find her not guilty by reason of insanity.
Prosecutors say she shot her mother, Ashley Smiley, a 40-year-old high school math teacher, in the face.
On March 19, 2024, a friend of 14-year-old Carly Gregg reached out to Ashley Smiley, Carly's mother, expressing concerns about her daughter's excessive use of marijuana. The friend revealed that Carly had been indulging in the drug and using burner cell phones, raising alarms about their well-being. Determined to act, Ashley decided to confront her daughter about the rumors. After speaking to Carly's friend, Ashley made her way to Carly's bedroom. What she discovered there shocked her. Several vape pens lay scattered across the bedroom. Alarmed, Ashley quickly wanted answers.
The jury seeing 5 days of disturbing evidence, including this surveillance video. First, you see Greg with a gun behind her back, pacing around the home.
That afternoon, security camera footage from inside the home captured a chilling scene. Carly, dressed in a Nirvana t-shirt, moved around the house, seemingly hiding something behind her back. It turned out to be a .357 Magnum handgun. As Carly walked out of view from the camera, the sound of 3 gunshots shattered the silence. The footage then showed Carly rushing back to the kitchen, where she sat calmly on the stool at the counter. She took out her phone and texted a friend, asking them to come over because there was an emergency. When Carly's friends arrived at the house, Carly asked them if they had ever seen a dead body. Without further explanation, Carly took them into her mother's bedroom, where Ashley lay lifeless, her face soaked in blood. According to this friend, Carly confessed that her stepfather, Heath Smiley, was next on her list. Using her dead mother's phone, Carly, pretending to be her mother, sent a message to Heath. The message read, "When will you be home, honey?" Little did Heath know that this message was a carefully crafted trap.
Her stepfather, Heath Smiley, coming home moments later, Greg also shooting him.
When Heath arrived at the front door, Carly ambushed him, shooting her stepfather in the shoulder. Despite the injury, Heath managed to take control of the situation. He overpowered Carly and took the gun away from her, ultimately saving his own life. In a panic, Heath called for help. Police officers arrived swiftly, along with paramedics. Carly was arrested on the spot. As investigators delved into Carly's background, they discovered a diary that shed light on her darkest thoughts. The journal revealed a list of beliefs that painted a chilling picture of Carly's twisted mind. Among these beliefs were statements such as, "There is no God," "It's okay to be evil," and "There is no need for family." The prosecution offered Carly a 40-year plea deal before her trial. However, she declined the offer. Carly's case quickly gained media attention, and the trial commenced 6 months later, in September 2024.
Tonight, a Mississippi teen sentenced to life in prison without parole for murdering her mother and attempting to kill her stepfather.
During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling argument, painting Carly Gregg as a calculating and cold-hearted killer. They alleged that Carly intentionally shot and killed her mother, Ashley, after Ashley discovered her secret marijuana use. The prosecution described Carly as a dangerous young lady who showed no remorse for her actions and planned the attack on her stepfather.
We, the jury, sentenced the defendant Carly Madison Gregg to life imprisonment.
The defense, on the other hand, presented a different narrative to the court. They claimed that Carly was in the midst of mental health struggles at the time of the crimes. A psychiatrist testified that Carly's mood swings were exacerbated by the medication she was taking. This psychiatrist argued that Carly's actions were not premeditated, but were driven by her unstable mental state. According to the psychiatrist, Carly's mental health struggles played a significant role in her violent actions. To support this claim, the defense presented Carly's journals as evidence, which revealed a young woman in mental turmoil.
I need to get some information from you. What is her name again?
Carly, C-A-R-L-Y.
C-A-R-L-Y?
Carly Madison.
During the trial, the prosecution presented the body cam footage captured by the police officers at the scene. The video depicted the chaotic aftermath of the murders as officers arrived at the scene and conducted their investigation. Carly sat at the defense table. She stared intently, her eyes fixed on the screen.
She what? She killed her mom! She killed her mom?
As Carly watched the footage, tears welled up in her eyes. The once composed and confident teenager was overcome with emotion. One of the key witnesses in Carly's trial was her stepfather, Heath.
Went off in my face before the door was, 3 or 4 inches wide open.
Heath testified about the tragic events that led to his wife's murder. He stated that despite Carly's actions, he still had a good relationship with her. This statement shocked the public, as it seemed incomprehensible that he could maintain a bond with someone who had shot him and taken the life of his wife. In their closing argument, the prosecution reminded the jury that Carly knew the difference between right and wrong when she committed the murder. After careful consideration, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before delivering their verdict. They returned a guilty verdict, finding Carly guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Carly, who was only 15 years old, was found guilty of first-degree murder. Speaking to WLBT in an exclusive interview, Kevin Gregg, Carly's biological father, said he was embarrassed, angry, upset, and very sad about his daughter's actions. Currently, Carly is being held in the Youthful Offender Unit at the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. The defense attorneys have indicated that they plan to appeal Carly's conviction. However, given the severity of her crime and the public outcry, it seems unlikely that the appeal will successfully overturn the verdict. The next case involves Julio Cesar Rivera II, a notorious teen who shot a woman in the face during a string of carjackings, leaving a trail of terror in his wake.
But the robbery suspect didn't understand it had a keyless starting system. He says the man turned violent and started pistol whipping Alana.
On November 2, 2021, at approximately 3 p.m., 18-year-old Julio Cesar Rivera II approached Alana Castaneda at Whole Foods Market in the Alamo Quarry Market. Little did she know Julio was armed with a gun and prepared to carry out a robbery.
When his daughter found a gun in her face, she tried to give up her car, and he says that woman who helped his daughter in her greatest hour of need, he says that woman's a hero.
As the confrontation unfolded, Alana and Julio began struggling as Julio attempted to steal her vehicle. In the chaos, the weapon went off, striking Alana in the head. The gunshot echoed through the bustling marketplace, attracting the attention of bystanders and witnesses.
Godsend.
Everyone. I have never felt this much love in my life.
In the aftermath of the shooting, Julio fled the scene, leaving Alana bleeding on the ground. However, officers swiftly caught up to him a short while later, finding a handgun in his possession. Alana miraculously recovered, but that night's impact would forever haunt her. As investigators dug deeper into Julio's actions, they discovered a chilling pattern of armed carjackings dating back to October 2021. During this period, Julio had committed numerous carjackings, targeting unsuspecting victims throughout San Antonio. The crimes had escalated over time, displaying an alarming escalation in violence.
According to court records, 20-year-old Julio Cesar Rivera sentenced to 45 years in prison.
Facing mounting evidence against them, Julio pleaded guilty to 3 cases against him in 2023. The plea deal secured a conviction and prevented Julio from appealing his sentence. This meant the judge's decision was final, leaving little room for negotiation or reconsideration.
It was 45 years. I just started crying because it's not just for me, it's for the other victims as well.
During the sentencing phase, Alana had the opportunity to address the court and make her voice heard. She demanded that Julio receive the maximum sentence of 45 years for his crime. Alana explained to the court the pain and trauma she had endured as a result of his actions, emphasizing the need for justice to be served. During Julio's setting hearing, his family pleaded for leniency from the judge. Julio's loved ones argued that Julio had grown up without his mother and had faced numerous challenges throughout his life. They suggested that other people had manipulated Julio into participating in the carjackings. According to his father's partner, Julio had once lived with them but struggled with substance abuse. They had to kick him out of their house on several occasions due to his inability to cope with his addiction. That aspect of Julio's life further complicated the situation and, according to the defense, shed light on the reasons behind his actions.
I appreciate that his parents might think he was put up to it, but these were his choices, these were his decisions, this was his gun.
They presented evidence indicating that Julio had obtained the gun used to shoot Alana, leading to further suspicion that he was responsible for the heinous crime.
Ahead of his sentencing, Rivera apologized directly to Castaneda.
A lot of time to sit here and think about what I've done. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago.
The judge, weighing the evidence presented, opted to sentence Julio to the harshest possible, 45 years behind bars. In an emotional moment, Julio addressed Alana in court, expressing his sorrow and regret. Julio claimed that he prays daily for forgiveness and Alana's good health, seeking redemption for his actions.
Face to face with Rivera again was hard, said Castaneda, who's already endured 3 surgeries, with a 4th to come.
Following the sentencing, Alana shared her thoughts and feelings on social media. She expressed the challenges she faced in the aftermath of facing her shooter in court, acknowledging the emotional toll it took on her. Alana emphasized the importance of her ongoing recovery process and assured her supporters that she was determined to move forward with her life. In this next case, Joshua Coleman, a 15-year-old boy, seemed to have a normal upbringing. However, beneath the surface, things were not as they appeared. Deasia Green, a 15-year-old girl, was a chronic runaway, often disappearing for days. However, when her parents reported her missing in early January 2013, the police knew something was different this time. Her parents gave the authorities detailed information, hoping to bring her home safely.
Last year, Toledo police found the 15-year-old girl dead in an alley in the 1300 block of Page.
Just 6 days after she was reported missing, Deasia's lifeless body was found in an alley. She had been shot once in the head. The police were immediately called to investigate, and a crime scene was quickly established. Through their investigation, the police obtained a crucial eyewitness account. This witness claimed a 15-year-old boy named Joshua Coleman was the one who fatally shot Deasia.
As Green's mother asked him why he killed her daughter.
Why would Joshua do this to her? She didn't deserve it. She was a social butterfly. She didn't deserve it.
4 days after the discovery of Deasia's body, Joshua was arrested and charged with murder and felonious assault. He was swiftly indicted as an adult, a decision that shocked many given the age of both victim and perpetrator. According to sources, Deasia and Joshua had been dating shortly before her death. Joshua Coleman's attorneys and prosecutors eventually reached an agreement. The prosecution agreed to drop the charges of felonious assault and the gun specifications in exchange for Joshua receiving a life sentence, but being eligible for parole in 2039. During the sentencing hearing, the prosecution told the court the motive for Joshua's shooting of Deasia was never determined.
The last time I seen my baby was December 31st. That was the last day I seen my baby. The last time, y'all.
Deasia's mother delivered a devastating victim impact statement. She described Deasia as a social butterfly, full of life and joy. Throughout the trial, Joshua remained silent, only answering yes and no questions from the judge. His lack of remorse further enraged Giaja's loved ones.
In her murder later this month, he was sentenced to 15 years to life behind bars.
During the sentencing phase, the judge asked Joshua if he wanted to give a statement or explain the motive behind the shooting. However, Joshua declined, leaving many unanswered questions. Without the eyewitness's testimony, there may never have been justice for Giaja. The police, acknowledging this witness's crucial role, credited that person for their bravery and determination. It was the eyewitness's testimony that ultimately led to Joshua's conviction. Up next is the chilling tale of Brendan Deppa, a teenage felon whose crimes shocked his school community and targeted his own teacher.
He's charged with beating teachers at Joe Nadich last year for taking his Nintendo away in class, and deputies saying he beat her unconscious.
Joanne Nadich was a valued paraprofessional at Matanzas High School who had gained a reputation for her dedication and commitment to supporting students. However, she became increasingly concerned about Brendan Deppa, a troubled teen known for his aggressive behavior and obsession with gaming. In February 2023, Joanne approached Brendan's teacher to express her concerns about allowing him to participate in the gaming console class. She believed that given his disruptive behavior and lack of focus, he should not be allowed to use the console in the classroom. Brendan became enraged after hearing that he would no longer be allowed to use the console in the classroom. Instead of directing his anger towards his teacher, Brendan turned his wrath on Joanne. In a fit of rage, he stood up and got into Joanne's face, spitting on her. Determined to escape the situation, Joanne attempted to leave the classroom. However, Brendan refused to back down, pushing her to the ground. As Joanne lay defenseless on the ground, Brendan continued his assault, raining down blows and kicks upon her. Fortunately, the assault was interrupted by several bystanders who managed to pull Brendan away from Joanne.
Friends are raising money for Joan in a GoFundMe. You can see more than $40,000 has been raised so far.
As the deputies led Brendan away, he continued to threaten Joanne, vowing to kill her. Joanne's injuries were extensive and required immediate medical attention. She was hospitalized, where she was diagnosed with broken ribs, herniated discs, and rotator cuff injuries. In addition to these physical wounds, Joanne also began to experience the impact of the attack on her mental health. Matanzas High School surveillance system captured the entire incident. Footage of Brendan's merciless beating of Joanne quickly spread online, captivating the attention of viewers worldwide. Brendan's time behind bars was not without controversy. He managed to secure his GED while incarcerated. Nevertheless, he also found himself in frequent trouble, accumulating 9 incidents while confined in Flagler County Jail.
He is articulate and thoughtful in his responses to the court. He's been here the entire day without any problems in that regard, participating in these proceedings.
2 years after his arrest, Brendan pleaded no contest to aggravated battery on a school board employee. During the sentencing hearing, Brendan's demeanor was both disturbing and perplexing. Brendan laid his head on the defense table.
Candidate for solely community-based sanctions, at least not at first. Turning to this particular incident.
When the prosecutor spoke, calling Brendan dangerous, Brendan bent over in his seat, keeping his eyes firmly planted on the ground. The judge sentenced Brendan to 5 years in state prison and 15 years probation. Addressing Brendan directly, the judge declared that he had shown no remorse throughout the proceedings.
But for all of his diagnosis and treatment that he needs, that he be evaluated for his prescription medication on a regular basis.
Throughout the hearing, Brendan became increasingly agitated. He repeatedly protested at his attorney and demanded to speak, holding up a sheet of paper twice to emphasize his point. As Brendan left the courthouse, his demeanor seemed to change. Instead of his usual smile and enthusiastic interactions with the press, he gave a disturbing gesture. Brendan flipped off the cameras, sending a chilling message to the media and the world.
First of all, Ashley, I want to thank you for having me on tonight. I really appreciate that. It obviously was not what we were hoping for.
Speaking on his behalf, Brendan's mother expressed her dissatisfaction with the verdict and the sentence. Brendan's mother also claimed that the court was punishing her son because of his race. She alleged that the school district had failed her son by not implementing a proper behavior plan, leading to his aggressive behavior. Instead of prison, she advocated for Brendan to receive treatment, believing that this alternative would better address his issues. The devastation caused by these teenage murderers is clear, but their reactions are only the beginning. Stay tuned for more jaw-dropping stories and unforgettable courtroom moments in the next video.